Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to it. It is the Wednesday edition of Vuka Nazo, your morning news analysis show. Remember, we help you start your news day every weekday from 7 a.m. Of course, my name is Usihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. A reminder, you can get in touch with us by going to our website. That's at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. There, of course, you can also pledge some support. Why don't you become a growing number of subscribers who are basically putting together $100 towards the show every month, helping us, of course, hire the editors, the writers, the journals, who help us grow the show as we're building it as we fly it. Make sure, of course, you find that information on our website. All of our social media information is in the descriptors of this video. And remember, here on the Big Daddy Liberty Show's Vuka Nazo, we help you start your news day. But our friends over at the Daily Friend, well, they'll help you wrap up your news day with compelling analysis every Monday to Thursday from 1:30 p.m. coming to you live, actually. Make sure you check them out a bit later at www.dailyfriend.co.za. With that being said, enough of the jibber jabber. Let's get straight into the news. All right, we begin here this morning in Gauteng, where again, hey man, credit where it is due. The South African Police Service is racking up some wins. You remember we spoke last week about how the Hawks, for example, working in conjunction with private security, the Protea Coin, I think was the company that they worked with, were busting criminals left, right, and center. Well, in this case, another win such as that one. And I'm going to make it a bit of a habit on the show to celebrate some of the wins by our servicemen in blue, because as I've said before, we're big supporters of our men and women in blue in this country, because ordinary cops on the beat, the guys who you and I interact with on a day-to-day basis, they care about the communities that they serve. It's just a shame that the organization itself, the African Police Service as an organization, it has incompetent and really foolish management structures, and if anything, a loser and a bigger fool of a political leader, a one asshat of a police minister, Ubheki Cele. Goodness me, I'm counting the days until that man leaves that position. But in any event, let's celebrate the wins where a Gauteng man, 22-year-old, was busted and indeed now convicted, found guilty rather, for being in possession of guns that have been used in these cash-in-transit heists. There's a reason why I'm using the story. I'll get to that in a moment. Let me read very quickly from News 24 that wrote this story up, where it said, the individual, of course, is named Good Enough. Well, he's good enough to find his ass in prison, that's for sure. Good Enough Ncho Ngwane was found guilty of 5 counts of unlawful possession of prohibited firearms and 3 counts of unlawful possession of ammunition by the Kempton Park Regional Court. He was arrested, of course, in March 2018, that's a few years ago already, in Kempton Park by the Hawks. There they are again. He was in possession of an R4 fully automatic rifle, an LM5 semi-automatic rifle, a dash prod semi-automatic, 2 9mm pistols, and get this, 400 rounds of ammunition of different calibers at the time. That's according to Hawks spokesperson, Warrant Officer Ubani Ngumalo, end of quote. Now, I raised this particular issue, as I said earlier on, of this particular story, not because of the win necessarily. The win is, we welcome it. Well done, Hawks. Well done, SAPS, and indeed the criminal justice system. Let's see more of these convictions. But what I'm raising this issue for is a recognition of where we're heading insofar as the festive season, which is not that far off now. Around this time of the year, cash-in-transit heists definitely pick up, and they often happen in places where you and I will even be found, right? Whether it's in malls or the very places that often people flock to at this time of year. So if anything, I want this episode to be a warning to you. Stay vigilant, dear South African, and indeed, if you see these cash in transit vehicles, maybe do as I do and I steer clear of them and not be in their vicinity necessarily, because these sort of crimes, when they do happen, especially when you look at that kind and caliber of carbines, rifles, and indeed pistols that were mentioned there, you do not want to be anywhere near that when that scene pops off. So with that being said, again, congratulations to SAPS, but to you, the ordinary citizen, the sane, sober, moral, prudent, law-abiding, faith, flag, family, and freedom type citizen, be vigilant and let's keep safe. All right, I'm keeping to the theme today of law and order and indeed law enforcement in this country. You'll remember now, law enforcement in South Africa, given the almost collapse of the South African Police Service insofar as its management structure and overall ability to fulfill its mandate, has seen, of course, the rise of the private security industry in this country. It's ballooned over the last few years of democracy in South Africa, as more people like you and me outsource our safety and security away from the state and basically into the hands of a more accountable private sector, people who we can pay to look after us and our families. So the private security industry in this country does fantastic work, but this is what I want to raise with you. You're finding now that private security is almost transcending its role as having a direct contract with itself and its clients, and actually now is beginning to do more actual policing work. The idea of visible policing, for example, you're more likely to see a private security vehicle or van in your neighborhood patrolling, being visible, acting as a deterrent, than actual police, state SAPS police vehicles, which speaks to what I mentioned earlier on as that failure of management, indeed incompetent management, to get some of the basics right for our men and women in blue. What am I talking about in this instance? Here's a nice incident I saw that spoke to this, where a private security vehicle, after being alerted by members of the public, mostly because they're the ones who you're likely to bump into, that is private security vehicles, then proceeded to go to the scene of a alleged burglary, saw the suspects who leaped into their car, and a high-speed chase ensued. And look at how determined these guys are to catch the criminals in our society. Watch this. Now, I want to read from, unaccustomed as I am, from Wikipedia, which basically gives some stats and I said the size of the private security industry in this country. Remember, for every one police officer in South Africa, there's 3 private security personnel. They outnumber the police and indeed our armed forces, the army in this country, substantially, which tells you again the demand in this country for safety and security. But again, as I said, Wikipedia adds some context to this by basically citing that the private security industry in South Africa is among the largest in the world, with over 9,000 registered security companies, 450,000 registered active private security guards, and a further 1.5 million qualified but inactive guards, many times more than the available personnel, as I said, in the SAPS and the South African Army combined, end of quote. So that should tell you everything you need to know about where we're heading as South Africans. But this is my takeaway here. I have no problem with the private security industry in this country. Indeed, I would encourage us to invest in more of such security, especially because we have been failed by the state. Indeed, some of the ideas I want to push into communities across this country as I do my groundwork is to expand private security options and indeed filter them down to even the more poorer segments of our society. No one said people who live in informal settlements or townships shouldn't have their own private security, which they invest in. For instance, you could have in a township communities banding together and forming a security stokvel, where maybe each household puts together 50, 100 rand a month in order to hire their own private security guards. Yes, these individuals can be registered, of course, and should be registered with the Private Security Industry Regulation Act and the organization PRISA, if I'm not mistaken. It can all be legit, but the point is, poorer people can also invest in their own security so that we can actually extend safety and create safer communities for us, the Faith, Flag, Family and Freedom Society. No longer should you be dependent on a state and an asshat of a police minister who fails you. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of Vuka Nazo. And you may have heard a little hint in that last story that I will be back on the road pushing my ideas, my liberty ideas, my values of faith, flag, family, and freedom into communities across this country. I'll communicate more information on that in due course. And yeah, with that being said, thanks for watching. Remember, you can find us on our website at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. There, of course, you'll find all our recent episodes. And if you want to support the show, that information is at the bottom of the screen, where you can contribute 100 Rand a month and help us keep going. With that being said, happy Wednesday, folks, and I'll see you tomorrow bright and early as we come to you weekdays from 7 a.m. here on Vuka Nazo.